I think foremost when I think of Buzz, I think of a gentleman, a gentle soul.
I would say he has a profound moral compass that guides him in everything that he does.
My first impression was scary, right? He is very tall, as you know. He's very, I don't want to use the word intimidating, but he's really smart.
He will call you to be your very best. He's not going to let you get away with anything because he's going to call you to the same high standards that he sets for himself.
He is probably the most intellectually curious person I've ever met in my life.
He's a prolific fundraiser. Don't get anywhere close to him if you're on the receiving end. You will be lighter when you get done.
Sometimes it gets a little hectic keeping up with Buzz McCoy, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
I was an only child. My dad was gone most of World War II, so I grew up alone with books and have kept that all my life. And I focused my reading on relationships among people, ethical issues.
Both of his parents were so involved in the Red Cross, so I think he grew up with a set of values that definitely were instilled from his parents.
Kind of stumbled into leadership roles very early on. I was a fraternity president at Stanford, and senior year I had a dorm of freshmen that I was responsible for. And when I was in the Army in Korea, I had a platoon, and I was by far the youngest guy in the platoon.
Buzz has this energy and engagement with Stanford that started when he was a student. He's been volunteering for Stanford for over 50 years.
Stanford had a huge impact on him. Anyone who is privileged to spend 4 years at Stanford on that beautiful campus has to come away with a greatly increased sense of appreciation for the land. And Buzz certainly does.
Since I was little, all of our vacations have always been going somewhere in nature, to enjoy almost a spiritual relationship with the environment.
When I was a young developer, I joined the Urban Land Institute to learn about real estate development, and one of the best teachers in the world of finance was Buzz McCoy, so I listened to every word he had to say. He was at the top of the real estate finance world at the time.
He ran Morgan Stanley Real Estate. Think about that. Really developed Japan as a real estate business before anyone else went to Japan.
We did a transaction back in the early 1970s called Monumental Property Trust. It was a liquidation of a real estate company for about $1 billion. My client was a man named Bud Meyerhoff. We awarded the bid to the highest bidder. It was a public company, so you had to be very careful how you did things and maybe transparent. And then another financial institution, a very prominent financial institution, anyone would know who they were, came in and said, why don't you reopen the process and we'll bid higher. Bud said, what would you do? And I said, well, you're a public company, you get a higher price, it's good for your shareholders. On the other hand, there's a matter of respect and integrity, and he said, I agree with you.
He was concerned about business ethics before all these scandals showed how much we needed some more business ethics. For instance, he was a banker before the banks got in trouble. And if there were more Buzz McCoys, we wouldn't have gotten in the situation we had.
We spent 10 years on the Bixby Ranch Company board. The Bixby Ranch is 24,000 acres, and he would work between the family-owned interests and the management interests in solving management problems, and he was brilliant at it. And he really taught me a lot on how to manage people and what to do.
I retired from Morgan Stanley when I was 52. Felt like I had enough wealth to sustain me for the rest of my life. I'd built the real estate business and run it for 15 years. And there's a big difference between building something and watching it grow and maintaining something. And to me, maintaining it wasn't as exciting as building it had been. I loved the experience in the Himalayas. I trekked 1,000 miles in the Himalayas and led some trips. And that was a dream come true because I'd always wanted to immerse myself in the wilderness. And I love the wilderness, but I also love the Buddhist culture and the religious aspects of the culture. And the Parable of the Sadhu, a paper I wrote for Harvard Business School, has held up for 35 years or so because of the depths of meaning. It's not a unidimensional situation, and it has to do with the possible death of a holy man on a high mountain pass in the Himalayas. And some people would give a lot of themselves to help the unknown stranger Others would walk right by, and we applied CPR and gave him food and clothing. And the question is, what limit? When do you get off the hook? When have you done enough?
There was somebody who wanted to meet with me to talk about ethics. Well, this was unheard of. It's very unheard of at Stanford for a donor to directly, potential donor to directly contact a faculty member. He made a proposal, which is that he would give me some seed funding to see what I could do to raise the profile of ethics on the campus. And the culmination is we have a thriving ethics center, which is about to celebrate its 10th anniversary. We have a thriving undergraduate honors program in ethics and society celebrating its 25th anniversary, and the campus Senate last year passed an undergraduate requirement in ethics for every Stanford undergraduate.
He's made me a better teacher by virtue of showing me how academic concepts, academic ethics can be applied in the real world so they can be useful to business people.
Buzz was on the board of directors for the hospital, UCLA Medical Center, and he had, because of his interest in ethics, he had a question. What were we doing with ethics at UCLA? And out of that, he and a friend of his, who was also on the board, Arnie Porath, got together and they began to interview people all over the UCLA Medical Center. And through their efforts, not only of interviewing and putting that report together, but sticking with us for these many years, over 12 years now, helping to form the Ethics Center that is now one of the busiest consult services in the country.
One day, Buzz and I are having a beer, and Buzz turned to me and said, it's just wonderful working with you. Because on all these deals, you do all the work. You take on all the liability, and I walk out with the big check. And I said, I have to rethink whether or not I still want to be an accountant or not.
Buzz invited me to join a group that meets weekly, and each member gives a talk about a subject of his interest. And it was my turn to give a talk. And Buzz was the chairman of the group. And I was doing a video arrangement for my talk, and I showed up a little bit late. And Buzz let me know that I should have been there earlier, been on time, and done it better.
When I had been working for Buzz for 4.5 years and my first child was 9 months old, I walked into Buzz's office and said, Buzz, I can't do this anymore. Buzz immediately responded and designed for me a part-time work-at-home position. Recognizing that this was Morgan Stanley, where we expected we were on call 24/7 and Morgan Stanley always came first, Buzz was somebody who thought about women and careers long before it was fashionable to talk about diversity.
We were selling Pacific Lighting Real Estate Group 7 bidders. In order to make a bid, you had to include a $1 million check. So I took the bids, wrote up the summaries, took them over to Buzz's house on a Saturday morning, handed Buzz the 7 $1 million checks. Buzz holds them in his hand, looks at me and says, Ron, I don't care how rich you are. There's something about holding $7 million in your hand that's just fun.
Is that we were trekking in Nepal, and Buzz went up ahead into a village, and it was very dry and very hot, and he bought all the beer in the village, and then he resold it to the rest of us who were coming up the trail for a profit. That was Buzz.
Buzz's legacy will be his example of volunteerism. Second will be a philanthropic legacy.
I think a legacy is the way those of us who are close to him and who've had the real benefit of working with him, the way he has encouraged all of us to try to live up to our potential as well.
I guess I'd like to be remembered as someone who was kind and considerate of other people, outwardly related, although I have a great private life, inward life as well. Someone who is ethically sensitive, truly interested in helping others.